want to talk about Kids on the Slope?
Okay. All right. So question, Kyle, why are you laughing after saying that?
Because there was just an awkward silence that felt like, oh yeah,
Ah,
that's
okay.
that's what we should do. I don't know why you guys are laughing. That's why I was laughing.
Yeah, I just started laughing because everyone else was laughing, and I felt like it was awkward if I didn't laugh. So I just kind of went for the ride.
I mean, I guess at least now we can have our intro being, so do we want to talk about Kids on the Slope and we all just laugh?
Like
that would be a much better intro than what we had before.
Yeah.
That would just be so funny. It's just ha ha. That was a shit show. Oh no.
Should we even like?
Okay, let's start at episode 1.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Log Time Podcast. We're talking about Kids on the Slope today.
You know what?
We don't do intros anymore.
How are you guys doing?
Oh my god.
We don't do this anymore.
No. We have a whole reel of shit to sift through.
So, you know what was the big thing that actually, it was like the first thing that struck me with Kids on the Slope that just amazed me? This is fucking animation while they're actually playing the instruments.
Okay,
Okay, yeah.
During the jam sessions.
Dude, just absolutely beautiful. There was also other parts of the of the show, like the scene that we all love much later, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. Where like they're all playing because the amps go out, so they're trying to buy time for like the whole talent show or whatever the fuck they're putting on. It's like they're really getting into it. It's really nice animation. But then like all the classmates that are like running class to class, and they're like, dude, check this shit out. They're like, that's super over animated in a positive way. Like it's like hyper realistic. That was super cool too.
Matt, weren't you and I actually talking about that last night?
Yeah, like I don't know exactly who animated those scenes, but I think those scenes were like half rotoscoped.
They had to have been. Like it's too perfect.
It seemed that way.
Yeah,
but like
I think the OP is also like partially rotoscoped as well.
I think they did a lot of this show with rotoscope because like it's not 3D per se, but like the way that some of the characters look in some scenes, even scenes where they're not doing the jamming sessions and stuff like that, it just like strikes me as like really close to like rotoscoping or 3D, but it's not 3D.
Yeah,
I couldn't put my finger on it.
I think maybe it's just a character designer because Kabinari, I made a post about that on the site. Please go read it. But self-plug. But in Kabinari, there was character designs that looked very similar to that. It almost looked 3D, but I think it was just the character designs. I think it was the same way in this show.
Like
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like maybe it was just the style.
Yeah, the style does very much lend itself to like this. Like it's erring more on the side of like realism.
Yeah, it's trying to be very realistic in the way the characters are designed, and like because they kind of got like the half shading on like the faces and stuff at certain angles.
But yeah, like certain animation in the show reminded me a lot of. I know that we saw it, Matt, but like it was like they had that one movie. It was like a live action movie, and they did a prequel to it, and then the prequel was entirely rotoscope. I can't remember the name of that film though, but like I really wanted to see it because it looked interesting. But it was weird because it was animated, but like the entire movie was rotoscope. It was like
oh yeah, I know what you're talking about now. We watched a preview for that.
Yeah. That threw me for a loop, and like this show did a lot of that as well, where I just looked at it, I'm like, that looks a little too real.
Yeah,
kind of wigging you out a little bit.
It wigs you out just a little bit.
It was almost reminding me of Oh shoot, what is that movie with Robert Downey Jr. in it? That was like cell shaded. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to help me out with this.
What?
No, you're not asking the right person.
You're asking outside of our field of expertise here, buddy boy. That's why we have you here for the films.
I know it's a film that you guys at least know, but I'm just trying to remember what it's actually called.
Well,
this is gonna drive me crazy, because it's a really good film. I'll figure it out later while we're doing the podcast.
Yeah, just scream it out like you're like
just
randomly. Yeah,
just middle of conversation, just scream like
whatever the fuck it is.
Gilbert Grape. But no, that's
A Scanner Darkly.
Oh, there we go.
okay. Cool.
I'm so
Great.
happy
At
that
least
I
we
remembered
figured it out.
Yeah, that's a film that was like, it was actually filmed live action, but it's not even rotoscope. It's like they just did like a weird, like, you know how you can put on like a Snapchat filter? That's basically what the movie is. It's like it was filmed live action, but there's a filter over the entire film to make it look like an animation.
Right. So
I don't know what you're talking about, but I kind of understand the concept. So there's that.
Yeah.
I can show you a clip of it and you'd understand it. To get back on point, because we've been on this, the animation's really cool. Sometimes it looks completely normal, and then other times it has this really neat, hyper accurate representation of like what human beings look like and how they perform. And I also liked how they did that audibly as well. Like whenever all of the characters are actually playing their instruments, the very notes that they're playing on their instruments, whether it's the bass or whether it's something else, those are the actual notes that you're hearing in the song. They did that really well. I was supremely impressed with that. Which they played around with too. Whenever when Okaru was the piano dude he was stiff when he first started playing jazz, and he wasn't quite sure what he was doing. That was represented very well, and they did a bunch of that as well. There was like another scene where he wanted the drummer to pick it up a notch and start forgetting about like some of the things that were bothering him, and so like he actually changes up his style, and it's heard in the music immediately, which was really cool. I don't know if you picked up on it.
When you're talking about the music, are you talking about like the soundtrack with the...
Yes.
Okay, so you're talking about the blending of the soundtrack with the jam sessions.
Right. Every time that they do these jam sessions, like the soundtrack that's playing of them like actually playing their instruments. Mm-hmm. It's completely perfect to like the notes that they're playing and how they're feeling in the show and different things like that. Like for example, later on, whenever they get Richan, I can't remember what her nickname was.
Ritsuko?
Yeah, Ritsuko or Ritsuki. Ritsuko. She joins them for singing. And like you can see it fluidly show because they have it's a whole montage scene where they're showing them like training for this whole show that they were gonna do, and like at first she's very nervous and you can hear it in her voice, and then as the montage goes on, it very fluidly just starts changing from nervous, unsure, to sure of herself, to actually putting her own spin on it and getting into the swing of the song, and only doing that audibly. And I was like, that's clever. That was super clever. They did a lot of neat stuff like that musically that I liked in the show a lot.
Yeah, I think those were actually my favorite portions of the show, when they were actually showing the development of the crew and how, for example, how Kaoru became more comfortable with transitioning to like jazz piano as opposed to classical. Like first, actually, I think it was maybe the second episode when it has that whole section where he's listening to that record of Monin, and then he'll write down the notes that he thinks he hears, and he'll do some sight reading stuff, and then he'll go down and practice it, and then go change it.
Runs up the stairs, runs down the stairs.
That was a funny scene. Yeah,
it really was, but it was really nice because it felt like at that point there was actually some character development that was pretty solid.
Right. I liked that a lot. And on a side note, I also like how his cousin is in the background of every single time that he goes up or down the stairs, just trying to figure out what the fuck he's doing. That was pretty funny too.
Looks like a crazy person.
And then he cocks his head to the side at the end of that scene in time with the music because he's confused, like why he's not getting it. That was nice too.
That was a very good scene.
Yeah. This show has so many good scenes of just them doing the jamming or like practicing a song or different things like that like shine so well outside of the actual plot that's going on.
Yeah, those are to me the shining moments of the show, the best portions.
I don't disagree with that statement. Yeah, the jam sessions and those moments revolving around the music are definitely what make the show what it is.
It's really weird because I had forgotten that this was a historical fiction show. So like, Zach, I think you remember whenever I figured it out because I was on Slack. I was just like,
yeah, you were like, what year does this take place?
Yeah,
these uniforms and everything is so weird. I'm like, it's 1966, Kyle.
Yeah, because they play at a jazz show, and all the sailor uniforms are like super old school, and then randomly in the middle of the jazz show, some racist motherfucker just like, why you playing that coon music? And I was like, whoa.
My reaction was, wow, this got racist really fast.
Yeah, like really fast.
Like,
and I immediately
play that white jazz. And I'm like, okay, so this is where we're going with this.
All right, let me just change up to some Benny Goodman.
It's like, I definitely feel like I'm a couple decades back.
No, it really surprised me. That's why I got on Slack and I was like, Zach, what year does this take place in? Because I was like, if you were gonna say it takes place in like 2009, I'd be like, what the fuck? Why is there some white dude that's just saying some racist shit over here in Japan? That made no damn sense to me.
I will say, this is the second show that we have watched for the podcast that has actually had spot-on English voice acting.
They hired like actual Americans. Is what it sounds like.
Like the actual like American soldiers that were part of the occupation sounded like natural English speakers, and I was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. It's kind of nice.
I wasn't either.
It's not super important, but I was just like, oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, like they nailed the American voices that were being done.
And I think it goes back to show in this TV show, like this anime, there's a weird attention to the smaller details. Like, even if I'm like, why are they doing this with a plot? All of a sudden we just get like a whole bunch of like actual Americans doing American voices in the show, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of I said that was interesting a lot during this show.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments of like, oh wow, nice touch. It's like, even if I'm like not entirely on board with the plot or something like that, I'm like, oh well, that's a nice touch. Really,
yeah, there's a lot of nice small things that the show does well.
Yeah, they've definitely nailed those small things.
Yeah,
and I'm very glad for that.
I'm trying to look through my notes to see what else I can talk about. There was one guy though later that was totally not American. Even though he was supposed to be. He was like an American sailor and he was chasing after a girl, and then they have a sweet little moment where like he kisses her forehead. It was like it was sometime after
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
sometime after they give the gloves to
Kaoru.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the exact quote that I have in here is I've got you baby instead of I've got you baby.
Oh Jesus.
That's some grade A English.
It was fantastic. He was the only guy that like was having a hard time with the script. But yeah, like he was the only guy. Like all the other ones were totally fine. Even the older brother type character that plays the trumpet.
Oh, June.
June actually, his singing voice was totally American. It wasn't even a Japanese guy singing in English. It was a guy with an American accent they hired to do his singing voice.
Yeah, when they did But Not For Me, I think it was, at the dive bar.
At the dive bar, and they performed that. Yeah, that really threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a good job with the English voice acting minus that one guy, I guess.
So, I want to talk about the plot a little bit, or talk around the plot.
Oh.
All right.
I'm not going to necessarily tackle the plot just yet, but I do want to talk around the plot. Like, as much as I have like mild issues with some of the stuff that happens in the later episodes, I will say they tended to resolve a lot of the drama either within the same episode or very quickly, rather than like drawing it out and like really milking it for all it's worth. With the exception of the ending where Sentaro runs away. That was the only thing. Is like besides that, they really didn't milk any of the drama longer than it needed to be for the story. It was like they did it. They showed the effects of it. They showed the recovery of like their friends. So they're like, well, we're gonna work through this. They work through it and then they move on. I thought that they did that okay, personally.
I will not dispute that they did resolve things quickly. That doesn't. I would not say they resolve things terribly well.
So here's the problem. No. Here's the problem I have. They might have resolved it quickly, but it wasn't before long that they kind of got in this trend of we resolved it quickly. Here's something else.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Literally 2 minutes after they would resolve something, sometimes less. Like once we started getting into like 3 episodes from the end, or I think it was 4 episodes from the end, it was like, we're still friends, man. We can make it through this. And he was like, yeah, we're still friends. And he comes through the front door of his house, and all of a sudden they're like, guess what? Your father, that was an abusive drunk's home. Like legitimately within 20 seconds. I was like, damn, that's a new record.
It's just the thing is, it wasn't always that way, and it makes me sad because the first 2 episodes, I feel like they did a really spot-on job of, introducing major plot elements, introducing important plot points, and going through them at a steady pace without interjecting any unnecessary kind of drama.
It kind of showed where the show was going to go, supposedly. Like, they kind of had this nice setup. Like, these are kind of all the elements that we're going to use when we're telling the story of the show, and this is how we're going to do it. Like, we're going to just do it this way, like we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And I thought we were on a nice little train. I was on the platform, and I could see the train coming up, and it was like, good times train. And then it flew off the rails, and then along came the train to Trope City. And
I think really it was like it continued this nice interesting way of doing things for probably up until like episode 6, maybe 7. I would say it managed to get at least to the halfway point of the show before it like really went off the rails.
Well,
but I think that.
Go ahead.
I was just thinking like, because like I would say, and I don't remember because I marathoned it, so it all flows together, but I would say it probably until like at least halfway through the show it was doing all right. It started introducing a few things and then starting up this idea of like plot line resolution, new plot line, but it was still okay. And then it was like after halfway through the show it just became formulaic in that way, in that it was exactly plotline resolution plotline resolution plotline. There was subtle things that they did in and around that, but it was still very formulaic after a point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with that. It did seem like at one point the plot kind of like they kind of had like the subtle, like it was kind of like they were going for a subtle plot, and then suddenly it was kind of like they went, oh, we're not being subtle anymore, so we're just going to do this plot line, and then we're going to have another like arc based thing next, and then we're going to do some other arc based thing, and I'm like, that was really weird. I personally, maybe this is just me, but I started disliking the show at about episode 4.
Like straight up disliking.
Yeah, I was actually getting some really bad vibes, like from episode 4 on.
If I recall correctly, episode 4.
Episode 3 I felt was really awkward, but episode 4 kind of raised some red flags. And
yeah, so episode 3 was when we finally get this interesting love quadrilateral.
Yeah.
Where Kaori likes Richan, and then Richan likes Sentaro, but Sentaro likes Yurika, and then like the following episode we find out Yurika likes June, which was just, I guess it's more like a love train.
It's like a love rectangle.
Kyle,
I think it's some people describe it.
Please don't describe it that way.
It's a love train, and then the train just goes off the rails.
Oh man.
But yeah, the I don't know. I was fine with the romance elements because like when I saw them happening, I was like, no, I'm totally on board. And I'm kind of a sucker for like a good romance. I don't dislike this show.
So I guess so. Matt, you mentioned that you started not liking around 4. What was it specifically that kind of pushed? Like, what were some of the elements that sort of like started, raising those flags, and you being like, hey, what?
Yeah. So the first thing that kind of bugged me about episode 4, like the romance elements were fine in episode 3. It was still a little awkward to watch. I still like paused the episode quite a few times. Because it was a little bit of cringe. So, but that was fine. Like I'm like, okay, I've seen worse than this. This is nothing. And it kind of seemed like it was going in a very good direction. And when episode 4 started, and it started rolling, I was like, okay, the romance elements are good. The breaking point, I think, is when the first red flag went up. Was when Kaoru goes to kiss Risako. Spoilers. And that felt really out of place to me. Like, and I was kind of like confused because like he gets rejected.
Yeah.
And I think it's at the end of episode 3, or she like says she can't like resolve her feelings or something.
Yeah, something like he plays that song for her. Someday my prince will come.
Mm-hmm.
He plays the song, and then the episode actually ends with him stating, "That was for you. I love you."
Right.
And then he doesn't get an answer. It's not that she necessarily rejects him; she just doesn't answer.
Yeah. So like she doesn't really answer, but like early on in the episode, you can kind of tell like is she either like doesn't know how to deal with it, or like she kind of doesn't like the way things are going. Like, and maybe that was just me, but I really was like watching your character actions and like, and I guess I understand we can't see things from like the main character's perspective, but I feel like he could have seen some of that. Like, if she doesn't give you a response, like you should wait for the response. You shouldn't,
Well, and he said, and he did say that he would wait for the response, but I mean, he's a teenager, raging hormones. It didn't seem so out of place to me because I've directly seen this in real life, of people like, yeah, no, I'll totally respect your feelings, and then they totally don't.
Yeah. Like I guess I understand that. Mm-hmm. It still doesn't keep me from being frustrated at his character per se, because and I totally just like Matt to me, like you were saying, it's not just you. Like to me, it was fairly obvious that if she even had an inkling of reciprocating, Kaoru's feelings at that point in time, it would have shown through differently, I feel like. But just the way that she was, as you were saying, behaving around Kaoru, her body language, the way that she was actually, interacting with him, or in some cases, not interacting with him. It should have been pretty obvious that this is like a can we not? But yeah.
And I think what really threw me for the loop for the scene wasn't necessarily the kiss itself, because I kind of understand what you were talking about the hormones and stuff. Like, I kind of get that, but her reaction afterwards wasn't like completely off-putting. And I think somewhere along the line, my brain is like, if this happened in real life, he would have gotten smacked the crap out of.
No, not necessarily.
You don't think so?
No. I know some women that would absolutely do that. I room with a woman that, like, if somebody kissed her and she didn't want it, she would fucking punch him in the balls and then kick him a few times while he's down. But like, no, because what I was thinking while that was going on was that because he never got a response. And so, like, he would clearly see the hesitation. He's very clever about that, because, like, he even noted earlier while they were having this whole thing where, like, he realizes her feelings for Sentaro solely because she actually made lunch, and he clearly sees that it's too large for her to eat, so she was making it for someone else, and it wasn't him. So we see that, and I think he probably realizes that it may not be the best idea, but because she didn't give him a response, and throughout the rest of the episode, while she seems stiff, he may be misinterpreting that as just hesitation. And so he wanted to make sure of it by directly challenging that. And so that's why he went for the kiss. That's what I was assuming was his line of thinking.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna disagree with that logic. Like, I mean, this wasn't like the point of the show where I was like, no, this show is bad. Like, right here, I'm just saying that this is where I started having some really mixed feelings about the show. Was based on the way this scene kind of interacted.
Yeah, and I even said in my notes here, I was like, oh, dude, bad move.
Yeah.
But at the same,
I mean, I'm pretty sure anyone at this point should see that. Yeah.
I guess at the point, I guess what I'm trying to say is that to me, it felt like it kind of crossed the line to the point where I felt like this is the kind of thing that's going to keep happening.
It was kind of a signal of things to come.
Yeah,
in that sense, and it's like, okay, this isn't a great indicator.
It's just kind of like a warning flag, like, hey, this show is going to go some weird places.
Yeah, I can understand where you're coming from.
I can see that. Yeah,
it's a little uncomfortable, and I'm generally okay with that. But like,
I mean, granted, I think that was kind of the point of the show in doing that scene, was like they were generally telling you that's an uncomfortable scene, and we may have more of these.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean, that's all I have really to say about that scene.
No, and I agree with you. It was an uncomfortable scene, and it's definitely that tipping point compared to the previous part of the show, where it seems like it's going to be, there's love triangles, there may be some drama, and then all of a sudden that happens, and you're like, oh, that's not where I expected things to go.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what it is. This is just not the kind of like romance story that like I kind of like expected from the show.
This is not like my Japanese anime.
I guess it's, to me, like the sort of pedigree that I assume the show had, coming into this, seeing the, directorial team, the creative team behind it. I guess I kind of expected, for me, like, I know it's going to be a romance of some kind, but I more expected it to be kind of a more thoughtful approach to these sort of romantic subtle elements. Yeah, and so, to me, it was pretty disappointing when it became another misunderstandings, the anime. And
there was a lot of miscommunication.
But while there was a lot of miscommunication, I think there was also a lot of clever communication throughout the show. Like, for instance,
there was. I will give you that.
Yeah, like for instance, the whole rice ball thing, where he immediately picks up on her feelings for Sentaro. I was like, that's clever.
That was a good.
Yeah,
that was a good thing.
Yeah, like Kaoru does have his moments where it's very clear he is able to competently sometimes communicate his thoughts and feelings and things of that nature. But then I don't know.
Other times I feel like he just completely misses it, and I feel like he just goes off the deep end when he misses it.
Yeah, and I mean I understand that is in some ways sort of the point. Adolescence, figuring things out, whatever. But regardless of that, I don't necessarily think that just having a show being able to say, "Oh, adolescence, figuring things out," is necessarily an excuse for convenient methods of storytelling. Is all, or plot progression, I guess. That was just it to me. Like again, I kind of felt like I maybe expected a little more subtle plot progression in that sense.
I really felt like this was going to be like one of those subtle kind of anime from just the first couple episodes, because in the second episode where Sentaro and Kaoru have that like mini fight, and they kind of like have that little spat or whatever, and then like they come back in with like the happy jazz moments where they kind of like resolve it, and they're kind of still kind of angry at each other, and then but as they start playing the jazz, like they feel better, and
Right,
they're kind of like, haha, this is silly, like why were we fighting, this is silly.
Soulful resolution.
And I kind of thought maybe that's how the entire show was going to be, and I was severely disappointed because I wanted that in the show.
Maybe it's because I wasn't expecting that for every scene. Like, I guess because I formulated a different expectation for the show.
I didn't expect it in every scene, but I expected it at least in most scenes.
It's just like the way that it was billed and the way that it was hyped up and everything made it seem as though the music, the jazz, actually was going to play a more central role to the show. And I'm not saying it didn't play a central role. I mean, it does.
I felt like it would have
kind of feels like
more into the plot and like how the characters were feeling.
Yeah, because it feels like
sometimes, but other times I don't feel like it did it as well as it did it before.
A lot of the time, it feels like it's used more as a convenient plot device rather than an actual, like Matt said, a tie into the plot. There are points where it is,
integrated,
competently woven in and things of that nature. Yes, but I feel like a lot of the time it is not as much of a music-based show as
it claims to be.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. Because I actually disagree with you on that point. Because now, granted, it's not like as much of a music-based show as like, well, I was gonna say
K-On!
Or something like that, but like, or like Show by Rock or something like that. But it definitely has an incredibly heavy use of music, and it's not even just the playing of the music. It's like they have incredibly subtle hints throughout the show with even just the records on the wall that people are interested in. That very clearly display like what their emotions are and who they're actually interested in.
No, yeah, certainly, because like there is that scene, for example, where oh gosh darn it, where
Yuriko is looking at
Yuriko's the record that June was playing previously.
I want to say his name was Chet Baker, but he's a favorite. He's an incredibly good trumpeter, or trumpeter. And so so she's looking at that because she's interested in June, who's a trumpeter as well. And so there's this whole scene where like when all of a sudden Sentaro comes into the room, she tries to hide the record, and then he figures it out through that. But that also happened like a couple of other times before then as well, where like depending on the music that they're talking about, you can actually tell if you know who the artist is, you can actually tell something about like an underlying theme that they're going on about. And then also like the jam sessions were very interesting in that like while they didn't always jam as often as you would expect them to, every time that they did, there was an importance to it. Like as we said, there was that one time that they were arguing, and then just because in music you don't do dissonance, and because especially in jazz, you the only way you play is if you is playing off the other person, whatever multiple people are playing. That there's just no way musically that they could be fighting, and it still sound good, and so like it just ends up rekindling that friendship that they had. But there were other scenes that served a very similar purpose as well. And so I thought, like, I was getting all the music vibes and music stuff that I wanted out of this show. And I felt that it was very interwoven with the show as well. So I don't know if I entirely agree with the idea that it was just used as a plot device rather than actually interwoven in the plot.
Well, like I said, I didn't feel like that was always the case.
Yeah,
like I said, there are points where it does really do that spot on, like the end of episode 7, where they're at the school talent show and the amplifiers for the Apollos are wrecked up, and then
it's our favorite scene in the entire show.
Yeah, and Sin and Kaoru are having a spat, but they come together and do an improv jazz session to stall for time. I thought that was an amazing moment. It was very clear. It brought them back to their roots and how they connected through jazz, and it fully rekindled their friendship. And it was kind of that sort of reconciliation without words. It was just like an understanding of each other's souls through their musical expression.
Yeah, I mean that was a really good scene. Like, yeah. To be honest, that's the kind of thing I was kind of expecting the finale of this show to be.
Right,
something like that.
Yeah, and I think we all agree that I don't know if we're that hot on the finale.
I'm not hot
on the last 3 episodes.
But no, definitely that scene. I like it as well because it also serves a double purpose. Of the songs that they play are Monin, which has been a theme throughout the show. And it kind of is the whole, the thing that got them started in their friendship, and is what's kept them going within their friendship. So that was very cool that they played Monin, but they also played My Favorite Things, a jazz version of that from The Sound of Music, which we had seen in the previous episode, is the favorite song of Ritsuko. And so it actually served a double purpose of also rekindling her ideas of I cannot say his name. Kaoru. And you can see within that scene the kind of turning point when she starts to move farther back from Sin and more towards Kaoru in her romantic interest. Which I thought was very subtle, but it was very cleverly done. I liked that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good scene. I'm not going to dispute that. The jazz scenes were literally my favorite part of the show.
Yep, when they
were really well done,
and it really, to me, showed the strongest points of actual, character interaction and their relationships that they had formed. In that moment, those were the epitomized. They were the souls of those relationships, and that felt to me like the actual strongest moments of bonds between them that they showed in the entire series.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And it's great that they're able to show that with just animation and music, no dialogue. They do it all without any dialogue whatsoever, which is very clever of the show that they were able to do that and show that so well. I would also argue cinematography, because a lot of the camera moving around and the different angles that they does a lot for those particular scenes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think that was the high point of the show. And I don't remember what the original point that got us here on was.
We were just talking about the plot.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought the plot was interwoven around the music very well. I thought, and before that, I also liked the thing where the whole reason why they were fighting was Sentaro decided to join up with a different band, and they're doing rock and roll, and that was one of those misunderstandings where like Kaoru was mad because he was like, I'm jealous you're taking my friend away from me. I can't believe that you're going into this rock and roll band instead of doing jazz with me. Um, and I did like that he even like specifically said when he got mad at the beach and just straight up got on the bus and drove away. Um, he or rode away. Like he even said, I behaved like just an angry kid that took his toys and went home. He did. I thought it was an okay scene. I just the plot point itself was like, eh. But I did like once again with the music that whenever we see Sintaro practicing for the rock and roll, I thought it was an interesting choice that like the drumming that he was, while it was lively, it was very robotic sounding compared to all the jazz that he was doing before, and you can see that emotionally on his actual face as he's playing as well. It's just a repeated. It's just like a repeated drum. It's just like a whole like repeated like 8 measures of drumming, and there's like and he doesn't seem that into it compared to like whenever he plays jazz, his whole body's into it and he's very lively. I thought that was clever. I wasn't a big fan of like the rock and roll plot point, but it led to a really awesome scene in episode 7 that we all love. So, I don't know. I don't dislike this show, and I think I might regard it a little bit higher than I guess what you guys got out of it, which is totally fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm just not well versed in musical stuff very well to get all that stuff, and I didn't like the romance that they did.
I was generally fine with the romance, but it was very different style of romance compared to most other anime romance that I think we've seen.
I feel like the romance was okay until it got to the latter half, and then everything went pants on head retarded.
It was like I was mostly fine with things up until episode 7. I looked at my notes for episode 8 and I just wrote shit happened, but I just didn't write anything. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then, yeah, I don't even remember too much at all of like what happened in episode 8. And then like episode 9 onwards, it was just a lot of drama with not a lot of actual like
substance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because for example, and Matt, like I know you and I discussed at length June and Utica's whole romantic arc.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Okay, because I didn't get this.
Lead us in.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a scene. Well, Zach, would you care to explain this? You're better explaining than I am. So
I didn't hear any of this, so I'm excited.
So somewhere around episode, I guess it was 8 or 9 or something like that, Utica is kind of flashing back in this memory to this point where she was hanging out with the rest of the gang and June. And there's this point in, Matt, was it like episode 4 or 5 or something?
Yeah, it was in episode 5 where June comes in, Eureka comes down, and like Sintaro and Kaoru leaves the room for some reason, and it's Jun and Eureka
they're just down in the jazz basement,
and they're just talking, and they're just talking about like I don't even remember what they were talking about.
It's pretty inconsequential.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter to the point I'm trying to make. But anyway, there's this whole scene where he takes a cigarette, he smokes it, and he's just like, coincidences just keep happening. Like you can tell like something's like bothering him about either Eureka. I didn't really actually understand the scene very well, but I figured it would play into something later, and it did, because in episode 8 it flashes back to this scene, except it flashes back to him kissing Eureka,
which we never saw.
Which didn't actually happen in the scene. I went back and checked.
Right, we never actually saw that, but they flash back to showing that it did happen. I did feel a little cheated there.
Well,
Um,
and one of my main issues with that was, one, we didn't actually see that, and then, when Matt, you messaged me about that, I was like, did this actually happen? Did I miss something? I was like, no, 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 no.
I
It was
actually make sure that I did not
Yeah.
miss anything.
And the thing is, I did go back and look at it, and at that scene, there wasn't even a sort of implication, even that their little alone time in the basement was going to lead to anything romantic in that sense. It seemed fully just kind of like, a sort of puppy love kind of one-sided crush thing on Utica's side.
I don't know.
So
He was being pretty flirtatious before that point.
he was being flirtatious, yeah, but for that specific scene, it didn't seem as though anything was going to come of it.
Mhm.
It didn't feel like it was leading up to that.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of odd. It felt as if it was like, okay, well, what can we do here to spice things up? And it's like, oh yeah, we had that part. Let's do something with that. And I don't necessarily feel that it was out of character per se, but it was odd. It was kind of a weird curveball to throw, and it kind of felt like it was just kind of put out there for the sake of, we resolved shit in episode 7. We need to bring up something else now.
Yeah, I really think they could have portrayed that a lot better
They could
in
have. Yeah.
the flashback, because there could have been a lot more subtle movements. And because the way I interpreted, I just thought that maybe like something in his, like, it triggered his backstory or something. Like, man, coincidences just keep on coming, it's weird. That's the kind of impression I got. But I guess the impression I was supposed to get was, oh, coincidences, huh? It's funny how things work like that. And then, like, I was supposed to be a little more flirtatious than that, I guess, and I just didn't pick up on it at all.
And it's like, I guess it's not like
It just wasn't displayed very well.
And that's not my main issue with that whole romantic arc. Like, okay, it's fine. We weren't really showing that. Like, that's more just kind of like
It was a minor
sloppy.
It was a minor detail.
It's a little sloppy storytelling to me.
Basically.
Doesn't really matter that much. What bugged me was just how they resolved it. Just it just, I don't know, because the whole thing ends with, you've seen the scene once, you've seen it 1,000 times in 1,000 other shows and movies.
You talking about the train?
Where June is about to go off to Tokyo to help a political resistance movement, and Utica follows him to the train and is like, will you take me with you? I love you,
I did think the
I'll
way
go
that
anywhere with you.
her dialogue in that scene was definitely very clever and very different from the cliche, though, which I appreciated. Even if they were doing the cliche.
Yeah, her dialogue, her questions, and everything.
Yeah,
it was nice.
Yeah,
but
she was like, I have 4
added a bit of her own
questions for you.
character.
What is it?
It added a little bit of her own character to it, which I did like. The problem is that it went right into a cliche. So that's kind of the problem I had.
Specifically, when the characters themselves said that it wasn't going to go into a cliche in that sense.
Yeah. Ooh, they subverted it. Aha.
Yeah, it's like, aren't you clever? But I don't know. It's not that I necessarily. I don't even know. It just. Again, I just wished it wouldn't have gone into yet another cliche to resolve things.
It's kind of interesting because I remember you having a similar problem in Toradora, where they kind of did not this scene, but they did the whole eloping thing, and you kind of disliked that a little bit too.
You talking about where they run away?
Yeah, and
you're talking to me or Kyle?
Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Did I? I mean, like
you said that once, but I
remember because we were all together and talking about it, and it was like I think I was the only one that actually tried to defend the point of like I liked that.
Well, in retrospect now, like I guess if I had said that before, then I probably did say that before. But with Toradora, like I get it. I actually kind of appreciate that. It's fucking stupid, and it was a dumbass idea for them, but that's the whole point.
But that was the whole point.
For that kind of.
Yeah, because literally in the next scene when they are on the train, they both go, "Oh my gosh, that was the fucking dumbest thing we've ever done," and then they go back.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
I totally respect what they're doing with that, and yeah, I think it was good for the end of that series for them to come to an idea of, okay, we don't exactly know as much about this whole commitment as we think we do.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to break your tangent, but I was just making the parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
It
It is a good parallel though, in that sense. But
and I would definitely argue in the defense of the case that you're bringing up here, of that, like, where Toradora actually specifically spoke out about it. This scene ended stating, "We're subverting the trope. She's not going to join him in Tokyo," and then at the very last second, he pulls her on board the train, and then they go to Tokyo. Where it was like, it was like, we subverted the trope, and then we played into the trope. Whereas in Toradora, it was, we played into the trope, and then we subverted the trope.
Yeah, it's kind of a difference of execution there.
Right.
yeah.
And you know what would have made this scene better in episode 9 or whatever?
Execution?
Yeah, that would have made it better for one. Two,
That would have made this a very different show.
what would have actually been, this all they had to do, 10 times better, would be for June. Why did I say Sentaro? Where he gets off the train instead. I think that would have been a lot
where
better
he
of a
stays?
statement. Yeah, if he would have stayed instead. I think that would have been...
Matt, I'm proud of you. That's a pretty pro-feminist message there.
Well, I just think that would have been a better execution than what we got.
You're right. I mean, well, I don't know, because he did wanted to do the whole promise where he was going to help with the resistance movement. But no, I do agree that, like, from a romance perspective, it probably would have been a hell of a lot better to just stay as he had, or to just do what they were doing in the first place, which was, she said, I want to tell him one last time that I love him, but at the same time, I understand that this is something he has to do, so, I'll let him go. And he's doing the same exact thing. It's like, I don't want to be stuck in this town, because then I know that I'm just not going to move on with my life. I'm not going to do anything. Even if it means that I will actually be with her and be able to love her, if I stay in this town, I will have accomplished nothing. And so where he wanted to get back on his feet and do something with his life, it would have just been better if, like, that was the split. And then, like, maybe later, since we had this whole time jump, like 8 years down the road, we can do the same thing where it's like, oh, they did manage to get back together. Well, that's nice, because we have this weird-ass time jump anyways of 8 years. So they wouldn't have even had to write that episode differently. It's just, instead of she getting on the train and being the cliche, they just parted ways at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. To get back on point, though, yeah, since they did the time jump anyway, you think that it wouldn't have mattered if he would have went with her or he didn't go with her, because they could have written it in later. I get that.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of do want to talk about the time jump, but I'm not quite there yet.
Me neither. Yeah, there's a couple things.
There's a couple more things I still want to address.
There's some stuff we need to talk about before that.
Mostly just episodes, because we just went over what happened in episode 8. That was basically all of episode 8.
That was the end of 9 too, though.
Yeah, that was the end of 9.
That was the end of 9. Yeah, because 10 is where they start getting ready for the final talent show.
Oh yeah, and then episode 9 we also have where Sentaro finally figures out that his childhood friend may have had feelings for him, but at that point she had already moved on, which I thought that was a nice scene. I thought that was a good scene. As far as, like, this relationship between Kaoru and Ritsuko, I actually thought episode 9 was strong as far as their relationship goes. I didn't really have any really big problems with what they did in that scene regarding them.
Yeah.
It was just overshadowed by the whole June and Eureka thing. And
Yep.
It was just like,
yeah.
Like, it's really hard to remember that actually happened.
Yeah, it's always just like there's some nice things that happen, and then it's like, okay, but over here we have, what are you doing? Please stop.
where like plot A is actually doing really well, plot B just starts fucking up.
It's like child A has a very nice flower to show you, and then child B has set himself on fire. And so you're not paying attention at all to child A because child B is fucking on fire.
And child A just keeps on going, "Mommy, look, my flower." And you're like, "Not right now, honey, not right now." Your brother is on fire. I don't know how that happened.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, it's like the only other things I think I really want to talk about is just all the shit that happens in episode 10 and 11, and then time jump in 12.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the shit.
Where once again, like, I was still relatively okay with a lot of, like, as far as the plot goes, like the romance stuff, up until probably like episode 9.
See, the thing is, for me, episode 10 was a great episode.
Yeah.
Like, episode 10, like, it rectified everything that I had major issues.
Yeah, let me flip through it real quick just so I can remember everything that happens.
Yeah.
Oh no, yeah. Like episode 10 was strong.
Episode 10 was amazing. Like they actually, like, it seemed like everything stopped being awkward between everyone, and everyone was, out and open and being mature about their feelings, and everything was great, and they were working through, all their.
They were trying to be adults because they're getting close to the third year, or they're in their third year, I think, at this point of high school. So
it's like, hey, we're getting close to the end here now. We don't have much chance left. Why don't we do this talent show and stuff?
Yeah, and as far as the romance, it was like we truly don't have much time left. We need to address this now. And like, and they had that super awesome, which mixed with a little bit of humor, scene of like Risco and Kaoru, where Kaoru's sick, and then she comes to visit him, and then they finally both confess, yeah, no, we totally love each other. That's a thing. I mean, I know we've kind of already understated it and overstated it, but now we're truly stating it.
Yeah,
I thought that was a good scene.
Yeah, it was so solid.
Yeah, they danced around the point for so long, and then they finally have the scene, and it's fucking beautiful. And then, not like 2 minutes later, as I'm looking on the actual time on this episode on my player, we get this whole thing where Sentoru's dad, who abused him as a kid, is coming back. Which, granted. He starts the whole thing of running away. I was very happy that episode 11, the very first thing that they show is Kaoru just standing by his front door going, "Nah, bitch, you're not doing this."
I'm gonna tell you, like, yes, I'm glad they did that. It pissed me off though that they actually did that though.
That they were gonna have him run away.
It legitimately made me mad that the end of episode 10 is like, oh, he's running away. And then episode 11, it's like, oh, psych, we're resolving that in the first minute of this episode.
I was actually happy about that.
I got a completely different feeling from both of you, but go on.
Yeah, I actually was not pissed. I was happy because I was like, don't fucking pull this cliche. And then they resolve it, and they resolve it in a way that I like. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm good.
Like I'm glad they do it that way. And I do feel like, okay, yeah, great. This is actually some good sort of, it shows some emotional bonding between, between Sen and
his dad,
Kaoru, and it's great. I get that. It just, it was annoying that they pulled that kind of cliffhanger that doesn't ever actually amount to anything. In that sense,
I don't know.
I was like,
I guess it didn't matter too much for me because I was marathoning the fucking shit out of these episodes because I was trying to get on this podcast. So like, I was like, let's just keep it going.
Well, so here's the kind of vibe I got. It was completely different. than what either of you two got out of this.
Okay.
But I focused on something completely different and thought it was going to take a completely different direction.
Matt, was his shoe untied or something?
No. Are you making a joke? I do not get that joke.
Wait,
right now.
what? Oh, okay.
I'm just wondering because you're like because you said I'm focusing on something completely different, and I was like, was it like a minor detail in the background? I'm confused.
No, it wasn't any of that. It wasn't
Okay.
the subtitles. It wasn't the background. No, I'm focusing on the cliffhanger you guys are talking about.
Okay.
He goes out the door, and while you guys thought he was running away, I thought he was going to commit suicide. Because that is, I was like, I'm not even shitting you. Like, I legit thought he was going to kill himself.
Why?
Okay. All right.
Is it
You're gonna have
because
to
he's?
And I was like, that's the kind of level of drama that's been happening. I was like, what kind of like thing are they going to pull this time?
You're okay.
Like
but they've never like truly shown a character just like straight
I
up.
know there is no precedent for it, except I've seen a lot of characters stand on the roofs of buildings in anime, and I've seen things take dramatic turns really fast. He was like saying a goodbye speech, and he was on a building.
You think we were about to
been-
say some sort of like golden time twist or something?
He's
you know
been
what?
scarred
With
by
this
too
show, I
many Jun
didn't
Maeda
know.
shows.
Okay, like episode 9, we just come off episode 9, and I was just thinking, anything's possible anymore.
Sky's the limit.
And I was just thinking, like, they're gonna need something to make some impact at this point because it's getting close to the end of the series.
Well, he
They
would have
need
made an impact if he did do what you think he was.
That's fucking terrible. That was really dark.
Oh my god! Wow. All right,
I'm just, Matt.
you're
I'm
not
just-
wrong.
I'm just imagining you like reading the kanji in the ending credits. And you just see Jun Maeda, and you're like, oh fuck.
It's just like it's just some line like he did the final beat on the snare drum of life.
Wow, man.
Like, and I'm not even making that up. Like as a joke,
Oh.
I legit thought that was what was gonna happen.
Holy shit.
So
I
I
That's not at all what I thought you were going to say.
You do have a point. He did like let his bird go, and he was literally standing on the top of the roof of his house.
and he was saying like I can't be here anymore.
Yeah,
like, that's
he
kinda
said,
what
"I
No,
can't."
that's fair.
It's
that is
to
fair.
quote what
I-
I'm looking at right now. He specifically says like, "I can't be here anymore," and then his final words before the credits are, "Take care," and then it just fades to black.
Like that was framed. It was
Yeah.
like
No,
like it's. I don't think it's unreasonable that I got that vibe.
no. Like
Fair
from
point, no.
from the actual dialogue and the setup, and going off of, the blueprint of how these things can and have gone in other series. Yeah, it's totally not at all unreasonable to think, oh god, is this where this is going?
And honestly, I think they might
get that.
play with that a little bit too, because we have the whole thing of like the car accident.
Oh my god.
Which
Okay.
I was upset that they even did that as a plot point. I will say, like in these latter,
Oh man.
where I was stating that where I was kind of like disagreeing with you guys for like some plot points in the earlier episodes. This like the last 4 episodes of this show, it's just like there are so many plot points. I'm like, why are you doing that?
It's a train
But
wreck.
But I do like that, like they do the whole cliche of like, oh, he forgot something, let me bring it to him, and then oh no, he's in a car accident, and then they just pull a switcheroo where it's like, oh no, it actually wasn't him in the car, like
Yeah.
like in the wreck, the little sister is the one that's like in a coma,
Yeah.
and he's totally fine.
Now, can I mention something about that bait and switch? Because when Kaoru is talking to Sin's mother,
I think you're about to say the same thing I was about to say.
and she is talking about he's had traumatic brain injuries or something like that. She is specifically using he pronouns. She's using male pronouns, saying, he was in this accident. He has traumatic brain trauma. We don't know if he will wake up.
Now, granted, is that
He-
just the subs, or is that the actual Japanese?
See, that's the thing. I don't know. It might just be the subs. I'm just going off of what we had to work with.
Right.
You would have to check another copy.
Because I think that might have just been the subs, and I think the people that did the subtitles for the show were specifically doing that in order to try and throw us for the same loop that the Japanese would have given us. At the same time, I agree with you, they should not have used male pronouns. They should have just done something like just say they or their. Like I know that a lot of people that are in English, they're very specific about that and they don't want to do it. It works though. Just use that.
See, while I say that is possible, the thing about this is the way that Kaoru actually reacts is, like, he says, is he okay? There's no indication that he even realizes that his sister was in on it. Like, at this point, they hadn't even given the whole plot point that, the sister was actually riding with him at this point. Like, it was all just, oh my god, this is sin, this is sin.
Except for her hair was like clearly visible in that scene. And it's just the entire time that he was driving, I was like, is that who's riding tandem on the back of the bike there? I was legitimately thinking that during that scene, because if you go back and look at it, the scene, like, her hair is clearly visible throughout that entire scene.
Oh, I mean, I didn't really pay attention that much to the scene itself, but
yeah. So I was really wondering about that.
Maybe that's what the subtitlers were thinking, that we were supposed to see that.
Okay.
And then we're trying to throw. I don't know.
And then also, I'm going back and looking at the subs right now. When he first approaches the mother, he just says, "I heard that there was an accident." He's not stating, "Is he okay?" He says, "I've heard that there was an accident." So there's no.
Well, he says, "Is he okay?" after she gives the whole spiel. That's what I was saying.
Let me.
Or from what I remember, anyway. Whatever. It's not super important. It's a tiny gripe.
No,
the bigger issue is not the pronoun you.
You are right about the pronouns as far as the mother is concerned, though. Like, for some reason, the subs decided to have her stating male pronouns.
Yeah. No, the pronoun usage, that's not the actual big problem with this scene. It's.
But no, he doesn't actually say, "Is he okay?" So far as I'm watching it.
Okay.
The only thing that he says is that after her monologue, he just says, Sin gets in fights all the time. She was like, "Oh no, it wasn't Sin."
Oh, that's what I was thinking of then.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, and she was like, "No, that's Sachiko. That's not Sin. Sin's totally fine. He's got like a broken arm." I thought you were going to mention something else about that scene.
That they said Sachiko had traumatic brain injury, and like an hour later she's fine.
Well, to be fair, he did sleep on the roof, so we don't know how long it is. But yeah, no, it apparently wasn't that long. Granted, they said that she had an injury and they did surgery and that she was just knocked out. So it could have been like 4 hours later she comes out of the anesthesia or whatever. We don't actually know that she was like in a coma after the car wreck or something like that. It's kind of ambiguous in that scene. But I was gonna mention how, like, he says the whole thing of like, Sin gets in fights all the time. She's like, "It wasn't Sin, it was Sachiko." And then the little brother says, "Yeah, he was here earlier. He was sitting here, but I think he's gone somewhere else." And he legit just says, "I see, thanks," and then turns around and runs. He completely doesn't even say, it really sucks that Sachiko's and the little sister's in this situation, or, that's terrible. I'm gonna go check in on Sin. He's just like, "Okay, thanks, bye," and just runs away. I was like, that's a bit weird.
I just kind of why this entire scene happened. Like,
I just at this point kind of expected that out of Kaoru. By this point, at this point in the show, it just feels like he has no situational awareness.
At times, he seems a little emotionally blunted.
Yeah, so
weirdly so.
It didn't seem that out of place to me, which is probably not a good thing.
No, I do agree. The writing did get. This was episode 11. Yeah, it was like episode 11 and 12. The writing definitely got a lot worse, I would say. Which is very.
They didn't even get the final talent show, which that was kind of disappointing because I thought we were actually going to get some big performance.
I was looking forward to the big performance, but at the same time, we got the jam sessions for it. And so I was genuinely okay with the fact that we didn't get the performance because, I mean, like, Love Life did that.
Well, that's not...
Yeah, like, Love Life did the same exact thing, where it was like they wanted to do the performance, but then the one girl just, like, drops fucking dead. Not really. But, like, she's so sick.
You might have discarded Rex.
No, I was about to say, what have I been missing?
It's not that kind of ride.
A mild spoiler here, but like she gets super sick, and then they just don't do the performance, and it's like the way that they approached that was very similar to this, and then it's like their relationship and like that matters over the fact that they're trying to do a performance. Granted, once again, it would have been nice to see their performance, but I'm okay with them not doing it. That wasn't.
I just kind of expected that to be the finale. But
yeah, and it didn't turn out to be.
But I mean, as I said, like I'm really just mad at the fact that they didn't end on like episode 7, like they didn't end on like that kind of scene. But I mean, I guess they kind of did. But we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that in a minute.
I will say, as far as like the writing for the show, like we said, or at least me personally, I was still on board up until episode 10. So like out of all this, only the last 2 episodes, because like episode 9 and 10 were strong episodes. There was the whole Yuriko thing where she gets, like we said, with the train, but other than that, like everything else was really freaking strong. I mean, and once again, we have cliched plot points, but I felt the writing was still doing well with that. It was just like episodes 11 and 12, it just went straight off the fucking deep end. Like if the rail was if the train was getting rickety, at this point it's toppled over. Within like episode 11 and 12, which episode 12 we jump ahead 8 years randomly.
Yeah.
We even still have things to cover before.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
There's a particular scene that really bothers me.
Is it the rapey scene?
Whoa.
Yeah.
Can we talk though, like to build up to that?
Go before that. Okay.
I'm just saying, like, you know, after the whole car scene, you know, Sen just disappears. Like, I mean, that's okay. I didn't have an issue with that because by this point, I actually kind of expected that. Because
they were playing into it because he tried to run away once, and so this was an even worse situation for him. So he definitely ran away.
In the beginning of that episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I fully expected it. I didn't have an issue with that. It's just once, the rapey scene.
Which by the way, rapey scene was in episode 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so Sen runs away, which I think all of us were kind of feeling that was kind of a dumb plot point. We understood why it happened because like you said, it was like we expected it.
We expected it. It wasn't a good reason.
Right. It wasn't a good reason, but we expected it. And the show definitely wanted you to expect it too, because they clearly show him trying to escape from his problems once, and then he gets foiled, and then things get even shittier, and so he truly just flat out just runs away from everything. But like in episode 12, we see like the after effects of him running away and what that's doing to the main characters, especially Kaoru. Where like Kaoru just kind of like gets super depressed. He doesn't want to talk to anybody, and his like girl that he professed his entire fucking love to, like he's refusing her and ignoring her. And then finally they get forced into a situation where like they're doing homework together, and it's kind of like their way of trying to like recover a little bit and have each other whenever Sin's gone. And he just like straight up forces himself on her. It's like they had this really beautiful moment that you obviously knew what was going to happen, because she straight up says, it's like the beginning of every hentai ever, because she straight up says, yeah, my parents aren't home. And I was like, oh, I've seen this one. But yeah, like
Wow. I do remember that line. You're not wrong.
I think
I'm not going to disagree.
I think the potentially it just felt so out of character.
well, let
for
me
Kaoru.
it definitely out of character.
And-
Let me do say that like I said, they did have this really sweet scene immediately before it where they're talking, and he says, well, while Sin's not around, I still at least have you. And they both look at each other, and they have this very slow move towards each other. There's a little hesitation, and they finally kiss, and it's like the first time that they like truly kiss, because like previously he just randomly kissed her and she didn't want it. So now it's like both of them accepting it, and they both want to kiss, and it's really lovely. Like it looks beautiful. It's framed in front of the window. He holds her head. It's beautiful. And then literally 2 seconds later, as he's holding her head, he like moves his hand down to like closer to her neck and shoulder, and then just like kind of leans over, and they're just on the ground and he's on top of her. And I was like, what the fuck? It was
It's
so out of place.
well, and
For
the
him.
line where, well, in not only that, but specifically when he says, I'm glad Sin is gone because now I can be alone with you whenever I want.
Yeah.
And
Specifically,
was-
he says,
line.
whenever
No.
I want.
no, it just, to me, I understand there were points throughout the show where it did seem like there was some tension in that regard, where Kaoru didn't always want Sin around. But it felt like leading up to episode 12, Kaoru,
Had kind of
like an adult, got
internally
over that.
resolved that.
He
Yes,
did,
exactly.
That's the past, you
He
know?
totally did.
So it was just so weird.
It was so weird.
It was like it and
It was-
I understand that, you know, Kaoru's having a tough time, and this might in some way be him still trying to deal with his sort of feelings, and he's still kind of confused and hurt about Sin just piecing out on him.
And that's exactly what it's supposed to be. And I think the show showed that he very much withdrawed, like he did at the very beginning of the show when he first moves to the school. That's his normal way of dealing with stress and anxiety. Is just that he withdraws from everything. He doesn't want to be near anyone. He just wants to be by himself. And this episode showed that very well. And then we finally see him open up and kiss her, and that was cool. And it's like, even if he's depressed, they at least have each other. That was a fine line. And then legitimately, like, I feel like someone shot the writer, and then the other guy just decided to move in and finish the story.
It's like, let's break everything. Let's destroy the entire point of this show that we've been building up. How about we do that? How about we break a bunch of good characterization we did so
Right.
far?
It starts with this scene and continues for the rest of the ending is just shitty ideas. Like, real shitty.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck would they do that? That doesn't make any sense for the plot, the characters, or the show. And like,
Yeah.
and it starts with this scene where he basically is not rape, because he's not, you know, but it's like he's forcing himself on her.
Yeah. And
I'm perturbed by that line.
Yeah, it was like sexual assault in a super rapey line, and
Well,
that is
it's not
completely not his character.
well, not
it's
only
not his
that,
character
it's,
at all.
yeah, that's
It was like all of a
who
sudden
the fuck says that?
Yeah,
It's like-
I'm
he
glad.
doesn't even
Like,
he doesn't even have like
right.
a regular pupil in the scene
Yeah.
either, because he's so depressed. And I'm like, what is this? Did I just fucking turn on to the last episode of School Days? Like, this is fucking
like-
dumb.
I'm glad my best friend of 3 years is gone, because now I can do things to you whenever I want. And I'm like, no, what?
No, that
Yeah,
doesn't
what the
make any
fuck?
sense.
My response was like, no, what the fuck? That was literally what I said.
And hey,
No, what
good
the
Like,
fuck?
I screamed at the TV. Like, I'm glad my neighbor wasn't home, because he would have thought like someone had broken into my apartment.
Yeah, no,
Because
like
I was just
At
I
this point, I
legitimately was mad
crying.
and screaming. And then, like, hey, at least, we didn't like it, and neither did she, because literally the next second later, as soon as he says that line, she kicks him off of her, and then just runs away, and she's like, I don't even want to fucking see you.
yeah. And then
That's a pretty
not
normal
only
reaction.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
And then
that's a
not
completely
only-
understandable
not only
reaction to
He's
it.
super rapey. Right after he's super rapey, he goes downstairs and he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go. Also, I'm going to Tokyo. I'm not gonna see you again. Bye. Sorry, I tried to rape you. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
dude. All right.
he
You
says,
already handled this situation badly by being a fucking horrible person by trying to force yourself on this girl that loves you. But then you have the audacity to just throw this out there after you completely destroyed her feelings and just say, oh, well, bye forever. Like I just
yeah.
it was just a complete collapse of his character, and in some way, again, I understand partially why that might have happened, but not to the degree that they did with this. Like
No.
it.
Yeah, that it definitely rubbed me the wrong way.
And it's like they do try to play it off a little bit, because like after that scene it sees him running away and he's like, I didn't want to do any of this, why the hell did I even do this? And I'm like, yeah, why the hell did you do it?
That was my question.
Yep.
No, yeah, it's like at least all of her reactions throughout this entire scene are completely understandable, and her characterization is never broken, it's just his. But it's fucking stupid that it was even broken in the first place. It shouldn't have been. Especially not when I was totally on board, like, 45 seconds later, whenever they kissed each other.
It's amazing, because even if I write off everything else and say that the romance story was actually done well.
I honestly thought a lot of it was, until episode 10.
Well, I'm just saying that even if I could say that myself,
Yeah.
I think this still would have broken me. Like, I think I would have been so mad because they would have just broken everything that they built up to. And I hate it when this happens. And there's no reason. There's absolutely, like, no reason why this happens.
It's Japan and their love for twist endings. That's all it is. We've seen way too many shows where it's just stupid twist endings.
Here's the thing. To me, it was appalling to me to see that this is what happened, because it's just, I don't understand how it got to this point, or why it was allowed to get to this point, because, for example, the director is Shinichiro Watanabe, the fucking director and scriptwriter of Cowboy Bebop, and of Ergo Proxy, and of, like, a couple Macross series, and Space Dandy, and Samurai Champloo, and, like, it's just...
Like, that's why I don't understand. Like, this staff, literally, like, they had, like... I don't know what they were thinking. Like... And, I mean, maybe the source material was just really bad, but even then, I feel like they could have still made something relatively palatable.
I assume that they were probably directly following the source material in this situation, especially given the crew that they had doing this. I truly believe that it was just that they are following the source material.
I mean, I really hope so. That's the only thing that really makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
But I feel like they could have done this way better at this point. I expected so much more.
Yeah, so I like the show a hell of a lot all the way through episode 10. Episode 11 even had some good points, even if I really didn't like the whole hospital shit. But like episode 12, after this point, what happens? It's like they So he gets rapey, then he gets on a train to go to Tokyo because he said he was going to. They go to different colleges. They don't ever see each other again. They don't ever talk to each other again. Which, why the fuck would they not? They've been friends for so long. Why didn't they at least send each other a fucking letter? That didn't make any sense to me. And then, so now we have a jump ahead 8 years later. He's a doctor. I don't even know what Richan's doing because they never say. Right.
Because they decided we just write her off for the rest of this episode.
And then by happenstance, he happens to meet up with Yuriko, who shows him a picture showing that Sin ran away and became a priest because he's hated what he's done with his life, so he's trying to turn it around. Which, I mean, that's fair, at least. But like,
yeah. It's at least consistent with
sense.
His desire. Yeah, his Catholic background,
and his close
love for helping
connection.
children and things of that nature, and he
and
goes and helps orphan kids. It makes sense.
Yeah, and he had a very close connection with the Catholic Church too, because like the priest was like one of his best buds that really helped him out, and we see that with like the rosary and everything like that. But yeah, like, so by happenstance, he gets Kaoru gets that picture and then goes on a vacation to try and find Sin. They find each other, and then we at least get one decent scene where he finds him and then starts playing Monin on the organ, which gets him to play drums, and they have their own reconciliation.
Because there's just a set of drums in the chapel there.
Well, given because after they get
and
done playing, like the priest comes in and he was like, "Hey, that's only supposed to be for mass and special occasions." I just assumed that like he never gave up on drumming, which it makes sense that he wouldn't.
It does make sense, but it's just like at that point it was just I saw it.
It was just another detail on top of everything else.
Yeah, and I was just like, because what else could it be?
Yeah.
How could they not put this here?
But it was a nice scene, at least, with them reconciling through music. And then the only thing that I don't like is that entire scene. I was like, well, this is cool. And then it ends, and I'm like, what are we gonna do? Because this was the trio, this was the Three Musketeers. Where's the girl? Like, where's Richan? Where did she go? And then we just have this tiny little note that says, hey, my friend happened to find Sin. You should go to this island where he is. And then they all meet up together, and that's how they end it.
For 5 seconds.
5 seconds. As the credits are rolling, I want to point out.
And you say it is, again, they technically reconcile through music. Again, it's a sort of nonverbal sort of thing. But, again, it feels like it's not anything substantial. It's not an actual, like, substantial reconciliation of, hey, so these things happened. Yeah, but I mean, I guess
might
when
have been if we didn't jump ahead 8 fucking years.
Yeah. The thing is, it feels like if the series had one more episode, that the ending probably would have been better, because it just feels so rushed. Like that last episode was just a clusterfuck.
I don't even know if it's the problem that the ending feels rushed to me. I think it's just the problem of like the ending's just bad.
Oh, it is, yeah.
It is.
But I just
it's not even a problem if they ran out of time, so they're kind of trying to like compress everything down to one episode. It just felt like I assume the source material is that way, and it just felt like that's like the last chapter of the source material.
No, actually, apparently, episode 12 compresses 2 volumes of the manga.
Really?
Into it. If I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure I read something of that nature somewhere. They slammed a lot of the actual source material and compressed it into that one last episode.
Well, that explains a few things.
Yeah. So, ending is still just pretty bad. I feel like it could have been marginally improved if it had a little more time. Still probably wouldn't have made it workable.
And if it was a little less rapey.
No, we can't help that, unfortunately.
and that's what bothers me is that I actually like. If I were to ignore episodes 11 and 12, and I know this is going to be different from you guys, but like if I were to ignore episodes 11 and 12 and it was just like 1 through 10, I would have totally been okay with the show.
No.
I would have been like,
that's
I would have been like super top tier. I actually like the romance in the show. I'm going to give this like an 8 or 9 out of 10.
I won't agree with you to that degree.
Right.
I will say, if we didn't have like episodes 11 and 12, and we didn't have that kind of bullshit, and it kind of ended sort of a trio reconciliation sort of thing, I would have, it would have been all right.
I would have given it at least a 7 or an 8. I don't know. It didn't drop too low for me. To be honest.
I don't even think I can give this a 5. I don't think I have it in me.
Is that including episodes 11 and 12, or is that excluding?
That's the entire thing.
Okay.
I just felt like it had some really good moments, and I felt like it had so much potential in those moments.
And I know here is where I'm really going to disagree with you guys for this. And I'm not trying to. I'm just interjecting. I'm sorry. You finish your point.
I was just saying that. I feel like it had moments that I wish that the rest of the show was like that. And
that's fair.
I just feel like there was a lot of stuff that could have just rewritten, discarded, or just done differently. And
because there's already plenty of examples of directors taking artistic license and things of that nature with a pre-existing source material.
Yeah.
Right, that's actually happened recently.
I was going to say some things have been a lot better than others. Like, I mean, at least it's not like a Kumamiko.
That's true.
But
yeah, no, I think this is where I know I'm going to disagree with you guys if we're going to make like an actual rating on it, like out of 10. Simply because
still not on that.
There's too many things that I liked audibly and visually, both the cinematography and animation, and both the music and the actual dialogue. I thought in a lot of cases were actually well above average. I'm not saying that it's in total with the included episodes of like the last 4 episodes. I don't think that this show definitely deserves like a 9 or a 10 when I'm trying to really think about it. And I don't want to give it an 8 either because like those last 2 episodes were just so bad. But like I still don't want to give it like a 5 or below because like there's too much quality shit that I'm seeing in this that's not done in so many other animes.
Yeah. And that's totally fair because I mean that
I understand
that's kind of something that I like about just our general composition anyways, because we all have our own different sort of specialties and things that we have
and feelings and
more
opinions
experience
on
with.
things.
Yeah, totally. We're
different backgrounds.
distinct human beings.
Yeah.
And so for you, having a musical background and being more in touch
significantly
with
improved the show, to be honest.
Yeah,
dude,
and
I appreciated all the tiny little details so much. There was so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I'm sitting here and I didn't get any of it. So,
and also having like a more cinema-based background as well. Yeah, I feel like had I come into the show with that sort of, that being more in my wheelhouse, I probably would have.
Yeah. And so at that same point, I understand why I'm giving it the rating that I'm giving it, and I can also understand why you guys are giving it the rating that you guys are giving it, whatever that rating may be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still not 100% sure.
And again, like the ratings don't really mean anything at the end of the day.
No.
It's just kind of a general, kind of feeling.
Yeah, and it comes down to whatever that individual person likes or dislikes.
So it's not like, ooh, we're not trying to like review the show. It's just
no.
We're just kind of stating our own opinions and kind of just forming the rating around that.
If this was supposed to be a review of the show, This would be the worst kind
I
of
just
review.
wanted to clarify that because sometimes I think there might be some confusion.
Where we might come across with it.
Yeah, it might seem like we always say the ratings that we give things, and I feel like someone might take that the wrong way. So
yeah,
I wanted to
and
clarify that.
even then, even when we do sort of state these things, it's not like they're set in stone. Yeah, because I can guarantee you there's been some things we've talked about and I've given ratings, and then I've watched some other shows and I've had some time to settle on the show and been like, okay, no, that was actually a lot better or potentially a lot worse than I gave it credit for initially.
Yeah, but yeah, no, for this show, going back to that, is just like, I don't want to give it a terrible score because I saw a lot of things that I appreciated greatly in it. So what do you guys feel on that subject as just an overall feeling for the show?
I wish it was more like episodes 1 and 2.
God, me too. I love this.
And there were parts where I felt like it was coming back, and it just crushed my hopes and dreams.
Because it's the thing is, for me, in the first episode, when Kaoru goes to the record shop and goes to the basement and finds and sees Sin on the drum set, and Sin starts banging away on the drums, and Kaoru is initially like, oh my god, what is this noise? And like he's visibly like perturbed by it. He's covering his ears and everything, and it's like they got this like sort of shaky cam sort of thing going on.
And then he slowly takes his hands off of his ears.
Yes, and it's this euphoria, and I like it. It legitimately,
absolutely good.
It gave me chills, and that to me set a precedent. That was like, okay,
that's what this show is going to be.
So yeah, it's going to be. This is what it is going to have to live up to, and it never quite reached that point again. Except I would argue episode 7 and
right.
that
episode 7 was close.
The scene in episode 7,
but
yeah.
It just it was just disappointing to me that is how they decided to hook the show, and then it never reached that again to me. And then they just went, God, why'd they do those last few episodes?
Matt?
Oh, what? What was the question? I completely
overall feel of the show.
Oh, just overall feel. I basically think that episodes 1 and 2 set a high marker, and the writing was awkward and clumsy, and I just think that it could have been a heck of a lot better than it was.
Okay. Yeah, and I just feel like the writing wasn't actually that bad until the last few episodes of the show, where I was on board with the romance. Like I saw that romance tag and I was like, all right, let's go, give me that drama. So I was,
got it.
Yeah, and I was generally on board.
Yeah, you did.
So like I actually like the show, with the exception of the last 2 episodes. So those are my feelings on it.
I can't watch this again.
No, I can't do it either. I was in tears. Well, what? Different conversation for different time. Yeah.
But okay. Anything else that we wanted to say about Kids on the Slope?
I think I am exhausted.
I don't. It just.
I think we've talked about almost everything that I wanted to.
I don't know. The only thing for me was just I'm just.
I'm glad
I'm just
we're
happy
off
to say
that
goodbye
slope.
to this damn slope.
You're like those 2 kids in episode 12. They're like
Literally
they graduated and they're like, say goodbye to this fucking slope, piece of shit. Walking up this every day.
I screen capped that, and Matt finished episode 12, and I just sent that to him because I was just done.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's it for this one. kind of a Debbie Downer no way to end it.
Well, like not necessarily. Like, well,
I
it's just a difference of opinion.
that was a very. I mean, this is very different than every other one we've done so far.
Because
Like,
because we actually
we're generally
a lot of differences.
Yeah.
Yes, we're pretty usually in
like
fairly
in sync
proximal
mostly.
agreement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I guess we'll catch everybody next time. So.
All right.
Bye.
see you
Bye.
later.